Hi, my name is Jeff McElroy, and I wanted to just take a minute to tell you about one of the most impressive guys I've ever met because he could use your help. His name is Evan Pickett. He happens to be my cousin, but because there's almost 20 years of difference between the two of us, we've had more of an uncle-nephew kind of relationship. When Evan was born, he was born with cerebral palsy. It doesn't affect him from the neck up, but from the neck down, it was affecting his development. His mom and dad began to realize he wasn't reaching different benchmarks that he should, and when they got the diagnosis from the doctor, they worked hard to go through physical therapy exercises to try to retrain his brain to create new pathways so that his body could do the things it needed to do to develop correctly. And our dream was, and our prayer was, that someday Evan would walk. And when he was 5 years old, with the help of a walker, he walked down the aisle at my wedding as my ring bearer. And it was one of the most amazing days of my life. A prayer had been answered for Evan. I'd love to say he continued to develop that way, but as his body grew over adolescence and the teen years, the muscles just worked against the growth of those bones. They constricted and they pulled, and he had to have major surgeries like the tops of both of his femurs cut off because the muscles were pulling the leg bone into the hip socket so tightly it was causing bone against bone. It was clear his life would be in a wheelchair. And that didn't stop him. His attitude was always so amazing, so motivating to the people who knew him. He inspired his friends and the students in his school. He knew all the guys on the football team because he loved sports even though he couldn't play, and they all knew him. Everybody knew Evan. Everybody wanted to be Evan's friend because they were better when they were around him, because he inspired them to reach their potential as they watched him doing everything he could to reach his. After high school, he went to college, and he graduated. In spite of the normal struggles like everyone else has, he had the additional struggles of dealing with a handicap of living life in a wheelchair, unable to do anything for yourself because his arms and his hands were so drawn up, and all he could do was just sit in his wheelchair. He persevered through all of that, and when he graduated, he dreamed of going to law school because he wanted to be a sports agent for professional athletes to help them make wise choices so they wouldn't be taken advantage of and they could reach their potential. In law school, he was doing great, and all of a sudden, he began to have problems where the muscles in his body pulled him more and more to the side. It started to cause problems with internal organs, and he had to undergo major back surgery, drop out of law school for a while as they fused all the vertebrae in his back and put 2 rods along his backbone and attached his backbone to those rods to try to help him sit up straight for the rest of his life. He re-enrolled in law school and he graduated. And I remember the day of his graduation. The dean of the law schools saying the name of each of the students as they came up and they got their diploma. And just before he said Evan's name, he stopped and he said, "This next student, the only way I could describe him, and it's not even adequate in this description, but he is the word perseverance in the flesh." And then he said, "Come get your diploma, Evan Pickett. You've earned it." And as soon as the dean said his name, the faculty, the student body, all stands up and erupts in this applause and standing ovation that went on and on and on. And I and my family were looking at each other with tears just pouring down our face because we were just so proud of his perseverance and his way of just inspiring the people around him. Yeah, he got a law degree, but more importantly, he inspired everybody that was on the journey with him. After law school, he continued just to say, my handicap's not going to hold me back. He decided that he loved experiencing adventures. And to celebrate graduating, he went skydiving. Literally with his legs duct taped to the guy so that they wouldn't flap around in the wind. And he's just that kind of guy. Nothing's going to keep him back. He got married. He married an angel. Her name is Summer. And she's an elementary school teacher and a photographer. And they were just like any other young couple in love. They went on trips. They had great adventures and traveled together. He was working for quite a while, trying to help people who had gone through a disaster, Like he helped families who had been hit by Katrina, try to make sure that they got all the government funding that was available to them so that they could rebuild their lives and so they could fulfill the potential of their own dreams for their own family, even though he was struggling, trying to see his own dreams fulfilled in his. And then after that, it's like they just started getting hit with blow after blow. Evan started to have these incredible spasms internally in the muscular system inside his body, and started to cause great pains internally, and he started to get sick a lot. What we found was that spasming going on inside of the body all the time, it makes the internal organs more prone to getting infections, and he began to get infection after infection that were life-threatening, and he would have to go in the hospital, and we would have to pray that he'd make it through. But he'd fight, and he'd make it back out of the hospital. But as he got sicker and in and out of the hospital more and more, it got to the point where he couldn't continue to work. His job became survival. Unfortunately, things progressed to the point that just this year, he was in the hospital for 7 months, a little bit over 7 months. And I remember flying to Texas at one point and spending some time with him just to try to give his wife just a few days of break, and to give his parents, who were in their late 60s, a break from driving down from Oklahoma to try to be there with him in the hospital in Dallas. Watching his wife was amazing. Summer would go to school and teach, and then as soon as school was out, she would go and she'd have a photo shoot for her photography business. And then she'd go and she'd get some dinner and she'd bring it to Evan's room, and they'd sit and they'd watch TV and they'd have their dinner, and she would tell him about her day, and then maybe he'd watch a game on TV while she edited some of the pictures she had taken that day. And then when she got to the point that it was midnight and she had done all the work she could do, she would sleep on that little chair in Evan's room that folded out into this makeshift cot, and then wake up early the next morning, run home, get showered, changed, go to the next school day, and repeat that over and over and over again. And you never heard her complain. You never heard her talk about how hard her life was. You just heard her say how grateful she was. She still had Evan with her. He got out of the hospital, and I would love to tell you that they've been able to just relish that time together and enjoy just being a couple at home, and Summer being able to sit there with her husband and them to say, we made it. But the bills have been building up, and they are suffocating under the weight of all of the medical bills. They have insurance from her teaching job, but it doesn't cover nearly enough to be able to pay the bills. But they still don't complain, and they would never ask for help, which is why I'm asking for them. Look, you see a lot of GoFundMe campaigns where it's somebody just wanting to take care of a want they've always had, or fulfill a wish they've always had of going on some adventure or taking some trip of a lifetime. Or you've got somebody that says, hey, I really need help, but they're not doing anything to help themselves. Well, that's not this couple. They're doing everything in their power to help themselves. And they don't need a handout. They just need a hand. They just need to know that as they continue the fight, that there's somebody in the trenches with them to help them take on the cost of the battle. You see other GoFundMe campaigns where somebody's trying to pitch a product that has this great potential for all that it can do. But then there's people that have potential, and they inspire others to their potential. There are people that, like Evan and Summer, sow into the lives of others, who are involved in their church and their community and working with their youth group at their church and just wanting to see other people be all they can dream of being. Those are the kind of people I want to invest in. And I'm sure they're the kind of people you want to as well. So I'm asking on behalf of Evan and Summer, would you help this couple be able to stay in the fight? And I know they would be grateful for that help. Thank you for your consideration.